For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp sitting in the big boy chair for our guy, Hunt Palmer. All right, guys, day 2 of the Hunt Palmer impersonation. It has been a while before this since I filled in on this show. How did we do?
That was a good one.
Yeah, I'll give that one.
Was it better than yesterday?
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
What do they say? If you're 1% better every day, at some point you're going to. It's going to be perfection. I don't know if that's actually the rest of that saying, but it is.
I don't think so, but it's close enough.
Yeah, it sounds good. That when you hear that, you're like, wait a minute, and that guy knows what he's talking about. Totally made that up. But look, we're going to roll with it. Again, Taylor Sharp here with you, sitting in for a vacationing Mr. Hunt Palmer. Hunt is either one of two places. He is sitting on the beach reading something about baseball, he's sitting on the beach reading something about golf, or he is currently on a golf course. That's probably the extent of Hunt's beach vacation. I kind of just laid out his entire plans for the entirety of the week. Might be listening to his favorite Chicago Cubs podcast. Don't know. That's a big one in the Palmer household, I am sure. But look, we are obviously going to be draft heavy today, as the entire week is the 2025 NFL draft coming up this Thursday at 7 p.m. Also, we got word yesterday afternoon. The entire 104.5 ESPN crew, for the most part, will be at Don Juan on Thursday afternoon, starting at 7 o'clock to kick that thing off at Don Juan Cigar Bar. Come on out, hang out with us. If you can't get to our YouTube channel, we will have the whole thing live streamed. Cassie's going to co-host a little bit of it if she happens to make it out there. I will not be there. I will be at a rehearsal dinner, which is unfortunate because there's nothing I would rather do on a Thursday night than have T-Bob yell at me a little bit more when he throws back a few. Seemed like it was going to be the highlight of my week. Unfortunately, I will not be there, but everybody head out to Don Juan Cigar Bar on Thursday evening. All right, look, obviously NFL draft. We're going to talk some LSU baseball. They got a midweek game coming up tonight against Northwestern State. We are going to talk a little bit of LSU and then Hunt's normal Tuesday guest. We got Glen West coming up at 1:30 and then Sharif Ishak at 2:30. So we are jam-packed today on this Tuesday. Let's get this show started like we do every day with the Genesis Opening Drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Okay, so I mentioned it yesterday. I want to kind of go back to it. The report came out from Adam Schefter that the Saints have made calls about trading up into the second round to get a quarterback, presumably one Jackson Dart. Obviously, the Saints have the 9th pick in the first round as of right now. If they want to trade back up into the second round, or possibly late in the first, which we'll get into, to grab Jackson Dart, they're obviously not going to take a quarterback at 9 overall. Where would they go? Look, we've said here for months now. I've said it. T-Bob said it. Jake said it. I'm sure Hunt, Matt, whoever has mentioned playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. I would be good with that. Look, we've talked Teteroa McMillan. We've talked Tyler Warren. Some people have even brought up Ashton Genty, that if he falls to 9, he's that special of a player to where you can't pass up on him. Well, CBS Sports put out 2 different mock drafts yesterday. One by Jonathan Jones, the other by Ryan Wilson. Both work for CBS Sports, and both of them had the Saints taking Texas left tackle Kelvin Banks at 9 overall. Interesting that both of them had that also. You go look at all the betting odds. Kelvin Banks, not necessarily the favorite, but his odds have improved drastically to go number 9 overall to the New Orleans Saints. Now, you know, you're going to sit there and your knee-jerk reaction is going to be, we can't do this again. Offensive line, defensive line, like, I don't want it. I want an impact player. And I totally understand that. And look, you can feel a certain way about Kelvin Banks. That's fine. Take the name out of it. You still do need help on the offensive line. And if you're devoting, potentially trading away picks to come back up and grab your quarterback of the future in Jackson Dart, then you might as well protect it. So if you take Kelvin Banks at 9, look, he was a really good player in college. You go look at PFF, they have it broken down by what he had done. His overall grade in 2024 was 86.2. That's not bad. He's played a lot of football over his 3 years in Austin. 2023, 13 games. 2022, 14 games. 2024, 15 games. I mean, he's essentially a lot like a Will Campbell the day he stepped foot on campus, has been your starting left tackle, and he's been really solid at it. Speaking of playing left tackle a lot, they break down snaps by alignment. So how many snaps he has taken at a certain position on the offensive line. 2022, 857 snaps at left tackle, no snaps anywhere else. 2023, 983 snaps at left tackle, no snaps anywhere else. 2024, over 930 snaps at left tackle, and guess what? You guessed it, no other snaps anywhere else. So if you draft a Kelvin Banks, let's say both of these guys from CBS Sports are correct, and you draft Kelvin Banks or someone that is strictly a left tackle at 9 overall, I'm kind of okay with it. Yes, Taliesin Fuaga is your current left tackle. I thought he was pretty good as a rookie. I sat up here last year and said I would like Taliesin Fuaga to be the pick, but the reason I said that was because of his versatility. We saw him a lot at right tackle in college at Oregon State. You saw him play a lot of guard. I believed he had the ability to play left tackle. Saints obviously believed that as well. He went in there and he did a good job at left tackle as a rookie. But what did you hear about Fuaga coming out of college? He can play both sides. His more natural spot might be at that right tackle position. You still have Trevor Penning at right tackle that Saints fans are not thrilled about. And I get it. Penning certainly improved last year. But how much does that say? I mean, he's improved over the lost cause that you thought he was when he was at left tackle, left guard. You really couldn't put him in the lineup. He was below average last year, right tackle. He was not anywhere near the level you would feel comfortable rolling out that offensive line under a young quarterback, whether it's Spencer Rattler in his first full season starting or a rookie like a Jackson Dart if you do decide to draft him. If you draft Banks, would you move Fuaga to right tackle? If you do that, Fuaga and Kelvin Banks are going to be your left tackles. You obviously are going to have Cesar Ruiz. I don't think you can replace him this year. You're going to have to piece it together, but then you have Eric McCoy at center. I mean, that's 3 to 4 solid pieces. I mean, I get it. Cesar Ruiz has not been great. He's been a below average starter. He's been a liability at times. It's probably what you're going to work with on the inside. But you can at least shore up the tackle spots. I wouldn't hate the pick. It's not what I would have originally thought, but there's a lot of people right now saying, hey, Saints value O-line, D-line at the top of this draft. They want to get a quarterback later. Speaking of getting a quarterback later, I mentioned that Adam Schefter put it out. We have a write-up at LouisianaSports.net about the Saints' interest in trading back up into the second round. You're already at 40, but what happens if the Giants want a quarterback in the second round? The Raiders want a quarterback in the second round. Pittsburgh's sitting there at 21. They need a quarterback in the first round. So you can say, okay, well, you're already at 40 overall. That's the 7th pick of the second round. How much higher can you move up? It's not about how much higher can you move up. It's the teams you would have to jump in order to get the guy that you want. I personally believe Shedeur Sanders is going to fall in this draft. I think it's very apparent now that the Saints are not going to take him 9th overall. It does not appear to be the case. I don't think the Giants are taking him. I don't think the Raiders are going to draft a quarterback, at least not that high. They might take a quarterback at their second round pick, which is another team the Saints would have to jump. They're not going to take a quarterback at 6 overall with the potential weapons that are there after you signed Geno Smith and gave him an extension. So let's say the Saints do want Jackson Dart. Well, Ross Jackson put this up on LouisianaSports.net, a nice write-up. He has the Saints actually trading up all the way to 32, so the very last pick in the first round, to, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, who we know the Saints love to trade with. He has the Saints sending the number 40 overall pick, so the Saints' second-round pick, 131, one of your 4th round picks, and your 2026 second round pick to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for 32nd overall and 134. So you still get a 4th rounder back. It's just a few spots back. I think you maybe make that trade. I mean, I was in the boat of keep your draft picks. You have a ton of them. Make as many picks as you can. I totally get that. Okay. Look, let's say Shedeur falls to 21. I think there's a chance that happens. And let's say Pittsburgh takes Shedeur Sanders at 21. You look at the rest of the first round, not a ton of guys.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Your teams in the first round necessarily need a quarterback, but look at your second round. You're still going to have the Browns there at 33. You're going to have the Giants there above you in the second round. The Raiders pick above you in the second round. All of those teams, they may not value a Sanders in the top 5, but they're still probably looking for a quarterback. If you have a fear that one of those teams could potentially grab a Jackson Dart, you may have to move over. And I'm okay with this because, okay, you give up 40 overall, but you get a first rounder in exchange. So you win that. You give up 141, one of your 2 4th round picks, but you get 134 back. So you essentially lost 3 spots in the 4th round. I'm okay with that. The 4th round's a wash. 131 to 134 to me is a wash. You win 40 to 32. Essentially, you have a chance to trade back up into the first round under this scenario, and really, you only lose a 2026 second round pick. Because you're giving up 2 picks, but you're getting back 2 in this draft. There's been a lot of people that said, keep all your picks. You don't really lose any, at least in this draft, and you're giving up a 2026 second round pick. Now, again, this comes from Ross Jackson. This is just a scenario that he threw out there. I think that would be a home run. I personally think you have to give up a little bit more. I personally think the Saints may have to trade up a little bit higher to get a Jackson Dart. But if that's the scenario, Dart's there at 32, you can make that. You give up 40, 131, and your 2026 second round pick. And in return, you get for another first round pick from Philadelphia and 134 overall. I think you make that all day long. Because again, you're not losing anything in this draft. And in the first round, you now have, if it's Kelvin Banks, your starting left tackle, and possibly who you believe to be your quarterback of the future. Whatever your thoughts were the last couple weeks or so of what you want the Saints to do in this draft, I get it. They need a pass catcher. For what it's worth, in this mock draft that Ross wrote up, he has the Saints taking Tyler Warren 9th overall. So maybe they do get a pass rusher or pass catcher in the first round. Everyone talks about a receiver on the outside. Look, if you stay put at 40 overall, all the quarterbacks you're in love with are gone, and Jaden Higgins is there, I'm all for taking Jaden Higgins. I think he's been really good in college. He's kind of one of those underrated guys. A lot of people have mentioned Teteroa McMillan. Oh, well, he's 6'4", he's 215 pounds. You got to grab a guy like that. You don't have a guy like that on your roster. Yeah, guess what? Jaden Higgins, 6'4", 215 pounds. He's likely going to be there in the second round. I'm okay with that. But if you are absolutely certain that Jackson Dart is the quarterback of the future, I'm okay with making this move. But let's say you have to trade up a little bit higher. What if you gave up second round pick? You still wanted to move up a little higher. Again, I think Shedeur is going to be there at 21. But what if he's not? What if a team like a Colts, who I don't think is going to take him? I mean, the Colts have Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, which first off, imagine being a Colts fan and having to figure out which one of those awesome quarterbacks is going to win that battle. That's a depressing thought. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback because you have Richardson, who's still young, who you invested a lot in. You spent a top 10 pick on him, and you brought in Daniel Jones as a veteran to battle for that quarterback spot. I don't think you're going to draft a quarterback, at least not a guy that you think is going to come in and start this year. So while I think they do need one, because I've already given up on Anthony Richardson, I hated the pick when they made it. I don't think they're going to do that quite yet. And where else? I mean, 12, the Cowboys, they're not taking a quarterback. Arizona could at 16. I don't think they will. But what if somebody trades up ahead of Pittsburgh, grabs Shedeur Sanders? Steelers could potentially steal Jackson Dart from me at 21. So let's say the Saints are dead set on drafting Jackson Dart. They don't quite want to do it at number 9, but they'll do whatever they can to get back up into the first round. Who's at 20 overall? You may have to jump in front of Pittsburgh, who's at 21. 20 overall is the Denver Broncos. I was not in those rooms. I don't know what the relationship is, but I do know something. Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton certainly have a relationship. Sean Payton has brought in a lot of former Saints players that were with him in New Orleans to Denver. Would they be willing to make some sort of a deal? Especially if a lot of running backs are on the board. And I think there will be. It's a pretty deep running back class. What if you gave up your second rounder this year, your second rounder next year, and threw in one of your 2 4th-round picks to get 20 overall? Might do that as well. You have another 4th-round pick already. You're giving up that 2026 second-round pick, like Ross mentioned. You're going up to 20 overall to get what you believe to be the quarterback of the future in Jackson Dart. Denver's not going to take a quarterback. The biggest needs are tight end and running back. Those are popular picks as far as what's been mocked to them. Some people have mocked Colston Loveland from Michigan. A lot of people have mocked Amarian Hampton out of UNC. Again, both of those are deep positions at 40 overall. A Mason Taylor could be there. There's going to be a ton of running backs available at 40 overall. Would Denver make that move? I think that's wishful thinking. I'm just throwing this scenario out there. I don't know if the Saints could trade up quite that high, but if they got desperate enough, Shador's already off the board, they're worried about Pittsburgh at 21, they may at least make that call. Look, it's going to be something to watch. We know a few things. From all the insiders and all the so-called draft experts, it doesn't look like they're taking Shador at number 9, and it looks like they really like Jackson Dart, and they'd be willing to move up and make a move. Whether you're for that, whether you're against that, that's kind of what's being laid out in front of us right now. Now, we'll have to wait and see on Thursday night if that comes to fruition, but that's kind of the rumblings that you're hearing right now, whether, doesn't really matter. Schefter, this morning on OTB, we had Nick Underhill on. Ross Jackson with us, he has it. 2 guys at CBS Sports that I just mentioned, their mock drafts, they have it as well. It kind of seems to be the consensus right now that the Saints are not taking Shador at 9, and they really like Dart, and they could trade back up. We'll see if they do that, where they trade back up, what they have to give up to do it, but it certainly seems like that is a possibility for the Saints here in the 2025 NFL Draft. All right, we're going to take a timeout. When we get back, we're going to have a little quick LSU baseball segment. They have a midweek matchup coming up with Northwestern State tonight. We'll break it all down next here on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. They're the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana, and they're right here in Baton Rouge. I told y'all earlier this week, we were driving, my wife goes, "Oh, that's that car I really like. It's a Genesis." And she had no idea that I even do this. I was like, yeah, they're really nice. They're really, really nice. And you should know it too. You don't see a ton of Genesis on the road because it's fairly new to our city here. They've only been at that location for a year and a half, but go check it out. It's a luxury vehicle. It's a luxury experience to be a Genesis driver. That means 3 years of complimentary maintenance, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. It's a luxury experience at a reasonable price over at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single car that's on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. And all of them, every single model, from the entry level to the highest end, come with the same safety features. Safety is a priority for Genesis. Go check them out. Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. That's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Welcome back in. Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp sitting in the host chair, filling in for a vacationing Hunt Palmer. I will be here today, tomorrow, possibly Thursday, and I will be out on Friday. We don't know about Thursday yet. We might switch it up on you guys on Thursday, but Matthew Musso will be in on Friday. Okay, I teased it there a little bit going into break. LSU will take on Northwestern State tonight for their midweek matchup. This is an unranked Demons team, and you can look at it and say, okay, well, your typical midweek game. Look, LSU had a tough midweek opponent last week in McNeese State. Is Northwestern State on the level as McNeese? No, they're not quite as good as McNeese, but they're a quality in-state midweek opponent. They're 24-17 on the season. They're 15-9 in Southland Conference play. They're coming off of a 2-1 series victory over Lamar. And they got some solid hitters in their lineup. Their best hitter, you're going to love this name. I do. Rocco Gump leads the way for them. 331 average, 8 doubles on the year, leads the team with 37 RBIs. Reese Lapoma, another guy for the Demons. He's batting over 300 as well. Daniel Burroway, you go to their stats on their page and you look at a guy like Daniel Burroway and you're like, Taylor, why are you mentioning Daniel Burroway? He's only batting 248. It's one of the lowest averages in their lineup. Yo, he has 11 home runs this year. He leads the team. Their pitching staff, not bad either. I mean, they're a 477 average right now. And, that's not great. It's not what McNeese was last week when they were at like a 297. But look, 477, not terrible. And then I wanted to mention like what they bat as a team. Again, you have a 268 average as a team. So you're an average to below average hitting team. But you're still solid. Rocco Gump, 331. Reese Lapoma, who I just mentioned, 308. Hudson Brignac, 299. Samuel Stevenson, 283. Braden Benton, 279. So you got a bunch of guys that aren't quite at 300, but they're hovering right in there. You have some quality bats. Stevenson, 31 RBIs. Got another guy with 25, 23, 18. They don't have one dominant player, but they got a couple guys in the lineup that can give you some problems. This is the type of team that you should handle them. You're a lot better on paper. You've performed a lot better so far this season. Northwestern State, they're going to be fired up for this game, playing up against LSU. If you let this team hang around, they could pose some problems for you. Now, am I saying, oh man, LSU better watch out? Like, first off, watch out in every game. I'm not saying I'm predicting an upset or anything, because I'm obviously not, although it could happen, but it's one of those teams where if you let them hang around, things could get a little hairy for you. You might have to do some things you weren't normally going to do in a midweek game. As far as what to watch, look, the starting lineup has not been posted yet. I'm just assuming this based on what we've seen in previous midweeks. I want William Schmidt to get extended if he's the starter. And I mean really extended. I asked for this last week. I said, hey, can we get 3 or 4 innings out of William Schmidt? He went 3 1/3 last week against McNeese. Great. But on Saturday, in Game 3 against Alabama, LSU fans learned you no longer have a number 3 starter on the weekend. You don't know who that's going to be. It's not going to be Chase Shores. He has been pulled. I doubt they reinsert him there. You started Connor Ware in Game 3. He only went 2 innings for you. You got to find somebody. And really, you got to have 4 arms if you want to compete in Omaha. Who can be that number 3 starter? Now, up until last week, I would have said, hey, William Schmidt, that's a solid choice. He's been good for you. Been a solid pitcher pretty much every time out. He struggled this weekend, guys. He struggled in a big way. I mean, he didn't even last a full inning in his matchup against Alabama. He had control issues. It was not the William Schmidt that we had been used to see. It tells me a few things. Yeah, okay, William Schmidt in the Saturday game, the one where you threw like 9 pitchers. Here's William Schmidt's stat line. 2/3 of an inning, 2 runs, both of them earned, 3 walks, no strikeouts. I mean, he had control issues. He's obviously not ready to be that number 3 starter. Can you maybe mold him into there? We have Tennessee this weekend. You have Texas A&M the weekend after that. You're not going to throw a freshman in there to be a weekend starter in either of those series. Can you bring him along slowly? 1, I want to see how he bounces back from probably his worst outing of the year. 2, you got to find a day 3 starter. I'm not even saying it has to be William Schmidt. I'm just looking at him because he's kind of been your midweek starter. Can you help him make that transition? He's a guy that is at least used to starting. I also want to see this bullpen continue to improve. You got swept by Auburn a couple weeks ago, but you threw 8 bullpen arms against Auburn and only gave up a total of 2 runs. Last week, outside of Schmidt, outside of a handful of guys, like overall, your bullpen was pretty solid. You have a chance to work on some things. I think LSU batting with runners in scoring position this year, you have left a lot to be desired. You'll have 14 runners on base against Alabama in the Saturday game alone. Games 1 and 2 were not much better. You've done that a lot this year. Against SEC competition, leaving all those runners on base is what loses games for you. You saw it in Game 3 against Alabama. It would have been huge to sweep that series. Now, I heard a lot of people say, okay, well, the Alabama game, that was a must sweep. I don't think it was a must sweep. I don't think we're there quite yet, but a sweep would have really been nice after getting swept by Auburn. Can Schmidt extend and have a bounce-back performance? Can your bullpen continue to improve? And what can you do at the plate? Look, Jared Jones had a big home run against Alabama. He was 2 for 11 on the weekend. Some of those guys are going to need bounce-back performances. And when you get runners in scoring position, you have to capitalize. At least sometimes. I'm not telling you you have to be perfect. I'm not saying if there are 14 runners on base, you should knock all 14 of them in. Can you get half of them in? Can you leave 6 guys, 7 guys on base, not 14? And that would help in a big way. You get 3 or 4 of those guys in against Alabama on Saturday, you win that series and you sweep. You're sitting here in a lot better position. Yes, you bounce back. You won the series against Alabama. You're still 2-4 in your last 6 SEC games. Now, so is Tennessee. They're coming in this weekend. They're also 2-4 in their last 6 SEC games. But you would have felt a lot better after getting swept, getting sweep.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger. Because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
But there's things you still need to work on. Northwestern, again, they're not the quality of a McNeese, but they are a decent quality in-state midweek opponent that can present enough of a challenge to where you're not just going through the motions, but also gives you a chance to work on some things that you need to fix for the weekend series. It'll be interesting to watch. Be excited to see how LSU responds, what they look like. Maybe can they kind of work out some things as they head into a big-time series this weekend against Tennessee. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. When we get back, Glen West of Go 247 is going to hop on for his normal time slot. We're going to talk a lot of LSU baseball. We may get into some transfer portal as well. That's coming up on the other side here on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Property and casualty or group employee benefits. Your one-stop shop for all things insurance is, of course, the Highland Insurance Group. If you're a business owner and you don't have a great relationship with your insurance broker, they're just the guy who came with the lowest premium number. That's one way to handle it, but it might not be the best way, especially when something happens. Whether it's a hurricane or a car accident or a cyber breach or a lawsuit or an injury. When that happens, you're going to need your insurance to respond. And if you only have the insurance in place because it was the cheapest one, it may not. Jonathan Carver and his team can be a trusted advisor and a part of your team as a business to make sure that your business continues to run even if the event happens. Give them a call. Or check them out online, HighlandIG.com. They're right here in Baton Rouge, but they can help you out statewide. It's Jonathan Carver and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Welcome in Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp sitting in for a vacationing Mr. Hunt Palmer. Right now, I want to bring on Glen West of Go 247. He joins Hunt every week at this time. Glen, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Taylor. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Doing good, man. Thanks for hopping on despite Hunt being out. Glen, last segment, I kind of did a quick preview of LSU in their midweek game tonight against Northwestern State. They obviously have the big-time series this weekend against Tennessee. I kind of want to get your thoughts on the bullpen the last few weeks because it was a big talking point coming into the season. And then when you started the season, that was kind of your biggest Achilles heel, right? But the last 2 weeks in SEC play, they've actually been pretty good. I mean, what have you seen from the bullpen the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think you can make an argument the last couple of weeks that LSU's been in these games for the most part because of their bullpen and because they've been able to kind of not let some of these games where the offense has struggled on the other side those deficits really balloon out of hand and get out of hand for him. So I think, look, the two guys that have been just lights out for you all season long, that hasn't changed. Kason Evans, Zach Cowan, those are guys you can just stick into the middle of a game and know that they're going to get 3, 4, 5 innings, whatever it takes to get you to the end of one of these closer games. And so I think what you've really tried to see or hoped to see over these last couple weeks is who else can kind of step up in that bullpen role? Who else can kind of maybe assert themselves as consistent pieces for this bullpen and maybe allow LSU some more flexibility for what they want to do going forward? And I think there are a couple names that come to mind. I think Connor Ware, I know he got the start this last Saturday, but before that, he had been a pretty consistent bullpen piece, I think, for you for the most part. Connor Benj is a guy that they have a lot of trust in to throw into some high leverage situations to get big timeouts a couple times a weekend. They'll go to him. I think Maverick Rizzi is a guy that LSU would really love to see come along and be consistent for him. Cooper Williams is another one, another freshman, left-handed guy. He's thrown 11 innings this year and still hasn't given up an earned run, Cooper Williams. So he's somebody that I think LSU would love to lean on in some of those high leverage situations as well. So, we're seeing a little bit of an increase in terms of the consistency out of the bullpen, but rarely this year have we seen this team click on all cylinders where it's offense, defense, starting pitching, bullpen, all coming together at once and having a big time weekend. I think that needs to start against Tennessee here if they want to get out of Alex Box with 2 wins this weekend. So I'll be very curious to see what they're able to do in all those respects, but certainly the bullpen being able to carry over its momentum the last couple weeks will be very, very much needed to get out of this series with a win.
I'm glad you brought up Chase Shores and Connor Ware getting that start. That was kind of the talk of the weekend, right? On Game 3, it was no longer Chase Shores. A lot of people thought, hey, when could that move potentially happen? It was Connor Ware only for 2 innings. You bring in Shores. He wasn't great in relief either. Who could potentially be that long-term answer as far as a Game 3 starter for LSU?
Yeah, look, they opened up Pandora's box this last Saturday with that decision, and I think all options are on the table. I think for LSU, they are not going to put themselves into this guy has to start for us over the next 4 weeks or else. It's going to be, I think, pretty varied and pretty matchup based. That doesn't mean that I don't think Shores is not going to start again this season. I would imagine that he does, but I think now, if you're able to get some consistency out of the bullpen, which I think your first question is kind of alluding to here, if enough guys can maybe step up for you in the bullpen and you're able to save a Zach Cowan for that final game, I think he's the guy that you're looking at as a potential starter for this team over the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. He's going to probably get a start in one of those games, I would imagine, before the start of the SEC tournament and postseason play. He's just been too good for you for so long now, and I know how valuable his role is for LSU out of the bullpen and what he's able to do. But if LSU is able to theoretically get themselves in a position where they can split the first 2 games or maybe win the first 2 games without having to burn Cowan, I think he's a guy that makes just all the sense in the world to potentially get a start for LSU over the course of the next month. So he's been your most dialed-in pitcher. I think he's been your most valuable pitcher to this point, and I think he's deserving of a start. Whether that comes this weekend or next weekend or 2 weeks down the line, I couldn't tell you that, but I think now that they've opened up that potential for another guy to slide in there in that Saturday starting role, anything's on the table, and I think you have to look at Zach Cowan as a major factor there.
Glenn, want to shift to the offensive side of things here real quick. Last week, they played McNeese in the midweek. Daniel Dickinson was leading off. It was a little bit different look in that lineup. Now, the first 2 games against Alabama, it was Derek Curiel like we had seen all year long. Game 3, they went back to Daniel Dickinson. Is that strictly like a matchup-based thing they're testing out, or is that something we could potentially see moving forward?
Yeah, look, I think there's probably some credence to that. I think probably what LSU and typically in Jay Johnson's career, what he's like to do, he's like to split up the lefty righty bats as much as possible. And I think he was just kind of trying out some different things last weekend. And look, Dickinson has been one of your most consistent on base percentage guys in conference play. Not saying that Curiel isn't, because Curiel's gotten on base for 41 or 2 straight games now. It's been ridiculous how consistent he is at the plate. But I think the way that Chris Stanfield is batting in that 9th hole and the consistency with which Dickinson is getting on base, LSU sees an opportunity there for Curiel to maybe be a guy that can bat in and drive in some more runs out of that 2-hole spot. And, Dickinson certainly can do that as well. But I really think that they wanted to just try to explore, what can potentially happen there when you've got, not only the top of the order, but the bottom of the order really kind of aligning and being consistent 1 through 9. And I think they've done a really nice job of, kind of figuring that stuff out. And they're going to continue to tweak with this thing. Like, I think there's going to be days where, Curiel will be in that leadoff spot and Jared Jones will be at batting number 2 again. I mean, like, there's going to be so much, I think, offensively that they have to continue to experiment with. The one thing I will say is that I wouldn't take Jake Brown out of the starting lineup anytime soon. I think he's just been too good for LSU here over the last couple of weeks, whether it's starting or as a pinch hitter. But that also, LSU, when they've been at their best this year, has been when they've been kind of making those right calls in terms of who to pinch hit where. So that would take away one less spot from a potential pinch hit option. So I think there's a lot of things that they're going to have to tinker with over the next couple weeks. Nothing is set in stone. But offensively, I think, just to answer your question directly, I think the opportunity for Curiel to drive in more runs from that 2-hole is why maybe you saw Dickinson in that leadoff spot and could continue to see some fluctuation there at the top of the order.
As far as Cade Arambidi, I mean, for a while it looked like Luis Hernandez was having to catch pretty much every game, but we've seen a lot more of Arambidi than we had to start the year. What have you kind of seen from him improvement-wise?
Yeah, I think probably LSU was hoping that he would come along defensively a little bit, and I think that's why you're seeing them have a little bit more confidence in him. You haven't seen as many drop balls. You haven't seen as many get to the backstop. They still happen, and of course they happen with Hernandez as well. And I think they want to get different looks out there. Arambidi's offensive upside, I think, is really, really high as you look forward to the long term of what he could potentially be. And the only way to get him some of those reps and kind of go through those growing pains is to get him out there for some of these high leverage SEC games. These opportunities right now are just invaluable for Cade Arambidi to be the kind of player LSU wants him to be, not only towards the end of this year, but also next year and the year after that. So I think it's good that they have another option there that's kind of developing and getting some consistent reps there. But at the end of the day, I do think Hernandez is still going to be the guy that starts the majority of your SEC games, and you slip Arambidi in there maybe once, twice a week just to continue to get him reps and get him the valuable playing experience it's going to take for him to be the player that LSU hopes he can be down the line.
Glenn, before we get you out of here, biggest thing you're watching tonight?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it boring. Certainly the bullpen arms is going to be a heavy bullpen game for LSU tonight. You're probably going to start with William Schmidt. You're going to go with a number of your bullpen arms that you're going to try to lean on in high leverage situations. And so, offensively, I don't think LSU is going to have a problem with the midweek arms of Northwestern State, but I do think that they are going to have to do a really good job of commanding the strike zone out of the bullpen and using a lot of those guys and getting them some reps, just getting them the feel for this weekend and what's to come. So they've got a great offense coming in here against Tennessee over the next several days, but getting those bullpen arms some work right now, I think, is probably the best interest of the team and where they could potentially go in terms of what that rotation looks like and out of the bullpen this weekend. I think they can start to learn some things about how they want to set that up this weekend.
Glen West, go 247. Glenn, thanks for hopping on with us today.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That was Glen West there of Go 247, talking a little Tigers baseball. LSU will take on the Northwestern State Demons tonight at 6:30 as they inch closer to that big-time matchup coming up this weekend against the Tennessee Volunteers at Alex Box Stadium. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. We get back. We're closing out hour number 1. That's coming up next here on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Welcome back in. Final segment, hour number one, a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp here with you, sitting in for Hunt Palmer. A little bit of LSU track/football news right before we get out of here at the top of the hour break. LSU wide receiver and track star Jelani Watkins clocked a 10.03 second 100-meter time on Saturday. This was at the Tom Jones Invitational. 6th fastest win legal time in program history. He is one spot behind a name that you will recognize for also being a two-sport athlete, Trendon Holiday, who is 5th with a 10 flat back in 2009. We saw Jelani Watkins. His name's popped up a few times already this offseason for what he's been able to do on the track. My question is, can he make an impact on the football field? This was a guy that was a 4-star recruit out of the state of Texas. I was excited when LSU got him because, well, I followed him through track and field, and I knew what kind of speed the guy had. He didn't play last year. He took the red shirt because he was undersized. Look, currently on LSU's roster, Jelani Watkins listed at 5'9", 163 pounds. He is obviously blazing fast. But it's weird that all of this kind of came together in one offseason. It's kind of a LSU got healthier, and they did a good job in the transfer portal. You have Jelani Watkins, Barrion Brown, who was mentioned on a list a few weeks ago of possibly being the fastest player in college football. I'm not even sure he's the fastest player at LSU with Jelani Watkins on the team. Xavion Thomas, he was a returner and receiver for you last year. We know what kind of speed he has. Chris Hilton, everyone was waiting for Chris Hilton to get healthy because you know what kind of speed he has. You know that he could be that deep threat receiver. Look at what him and Garrett Nussmeier did together the last 3 games of the year when Chris Hilton Jr. was finally fully healthy. He was a completely different quarterback with Chris Hilton in there because it opened up everything in the offense. When you have that deep threat, it opens up everything else underneath. Don't forget about Aaron Anderson. I mean, yes, Aaron Anderson lines up in the slot. He runs a lot of those short routes. Aaron Anderson's a burner as well. Watkins, Brown, Thomas, Anderson, Hilton. You have an embarrassment of riches as far as these speedsters at wide receiver. When last year, you were really kind of looking for that deep threat. Now, a lot of people wanted it to be Aaron Anderson and Xavion Thomas. They had to play a lot in the slot. You were looking for that speedster out wide. Chris Hilton ultimately stepped up and became that guy. This year, I mean, you kind of have your pick. And let's not forget Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker's not known as a quote-unquote burner, but the guy's got speed. And look, LSU fans were waiting week after week, the first 3 weeks of the season, for Garrett Nussmeier to finally hit one of those deep balls. What happened when he played UCLA? He threw what, in my opinion, is one of the top 3 passes he had all season long. Dropped it in the bucket down the right sideline for a touchdown. That was to Kyle Parker in that UCLA game. It was kind of the first really deep touchdown pass Garrett hit this past season. He got hurt in that game. Didn't see a ton of him the rest of the year. Kyle Parker's trying to work his way back from injury. If he gets fully healthy, could he contribute here? Whether it's Watkins, Brown, Xavion Thomas, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Kyle Parker, I think you're going to be a lot better at wide receiver in terms of being able to stretch the field. Look, whether it was Lacey, CJ Daniels, Mason Taylor, and all those guys were really, really good receivers. They weren't the quote-unquote burners, the guy you were going to throw that deep threat to. That's why it was so big when you got Chris Hilton back. Now you can say, okay, well, Aaron Anderson and Xavion Thomas, they're going to play a lot more in the slot like they did last year. Maybe, but honestly, I think you're a lot deeper this year than you were a year ago. Maybe you don't need those guys in there. Maybe those guys are going to run a lot more deep routes. You have a Nick Anderson coming in who's 6'5". He can be a matchup nightwear anywhere. The tight end position, which I love to talk about, Bauer Sharp and Trey'Dez Green, that dynamic duo. Can they be on the field at the same time? Would you put Trey'Dez Green lining up more out wide? That changes where everybody lines up. You have versatility on this roster. You have a lot of speed on this roster. That's only going to help Garrett Nussmeier. All offseason long, we've talked about Well, look, Nussmeier is going to get better. It all depends on the offensive line. The offensive line's good. Nussmeier's a year more experience, another year under Joe Sloan. He's running this offense. He should have a solid running game with Caden Durham. Like, yeah, that's all great. But, like, he should have a lot more deep threats. I think that's something that we're not talking about enough because, look, Nick Anderson at 6'5", great. Trades Green, Bauer Sharp. You did a really good job bringing in Bauer Sharp, trying to replace Mason Taylor, who was the most productive tight end you've ever had in school history. Now, you're not going to replace him with one guy, but Bauer Sharp, Donovan Green, J.D. LaFleur, you bring in all three of those guys, pair them with an athletic freak and Trades Green, you're good at every level. The question mark for me, not Chris Hilton, because we saw what he could be when he was fully healthy. What kind of speed do you have? What kind of deep threats do you have outside of a guy like Chris Hilton? You got options this year. Barian Brown was really good at that at Kentucky. Again, Xavion Thomas, Aaron Anderson, Jelani Watkins. I'm not saying all of these guys are going to make an impact because, look, Jelani Watkins still pretty undersized, but the track speed's there. Can it translate to the football field? We know about all the other speed you have as well. So, look, one thing I think we can pretty much book going into the season, you're going to have a lot more options as far as deep threats down the field outside of Chris Hilton, when last year you kind of struggled to find that all year long. All right, look, that's going to wrap it up for hour number one. Coming up in hour number two, CBS Sports put out their preseason MVP for each top 25 school in college football. Interesting name for LSU on this list. We'll break all that down. I want to talk about a guy who I think could be the steal of the entire first round of the NFL draft. Not necessarily a guy the Saints are after, but should they be? We'll have Sharif Ishak at 2:30, and then we'll close this thing out with Take It or Leave It. All right, we got another 60 minutes coming up on the other side. Stay tuned. We're still going to be football heavy. That's coming up on the other side. One more hour left with you here on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com. David Duvall and his team, 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. There are a lot of people who are not over the moon with their current home. Well, you can improve where you live. One Bath and Closets is happy to help you do that. Brand new customized closet, brand new bathroom, soup to nuts. They do the entire thing for you. You don't have to call 3 different contractors to get this entire thing done. No, you make one call to One Bath and Closets. They handle the entirety of it. Maybe you're not looking for something that extensive. Maybe you're looking for something like a tub to shower conversion. They can do that as well. You don't reuse that tub. They can take it out, put a glass walk-in shower in, changes the look of your bathroom, changes the functionality of your bathroom, adds value to your home. So if down the road you're looking to move on, that's an asset that you've got right there under your roof. We're worried about paying for it. Financing options are very much available for the folks over at One Bath and Closets. It starts with a free consultation, a questionnaire, and then a plan. They get it done and they do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's One Bath and Closets. You can check them out online at onebathandclosets.com.